Tuesday, what can I say? Oh, wait, no.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
You can all hear me? Okay, perfect.
You could hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay,
And we are
if we're all
just
here
about
now,
ready.
I believe.
We're waiting for Jason, I believe. Is he coming? We're waiting for the city attorney. Give us a second.
All right.
We are ready, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. This time we'll call to order the special meeting of March 10th, 2021. Councilmember Perez, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Mayor Velazquez,
Here.
Councilmember Perez,
Here.
Vice Mayor Resendez,
Here.
Councilmember Spencer,
Present.
Councilmember Burns,
Here.
City Manager Miller,
Here.
City Attorney Epperson,
Here.
Interim Police Chief Reynoso.
Here.
Thank you. The agenda for the City of Hollister City Council special meeting of March 10th, 2021 was posted on the bulletin board on March 5th, 2021 at 2:55 p.m. per Government Code Section 54956. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will now move to item A1.
Thank you. I was thinking what we would do is first go over the Hollister Municipal Code and make any changes to that or discuss the changes, agree, and then just move on. And then the next item I would like to have us go over would be the proposed ethics and conduct to be added in. And then the third would be the rules, policies, and procedures that was adopted by resolution. I've gone through those, and we'll look at anything that may already be in the Hollister Municipal Code. You will decide on the changes and then give me direction on what to implement. There's a fourth document, which is protocols and City Council protocols. And that'll be the fourth document because I think that some of this may actually end up being redundant. But there were changes requested to be made. So we may be going back to the Hollister Municipal Code and making changes as we go through the other documents. But if we go through it as it is now, I think it'll be easier. So,
Okay, is that all right with the council? Fine. All right, let's go ahead and start in that direction then.
So what you should see is the Hollister Municipal Code as it is and with the proposed changes in red. In parentheses, prior to the change, you will see who is requesting the change. So and these 2.04.010 are as they are now. Once I get all of these incorporated into one document, all these numbers will change because it would be too hard to try and figure out how it's going to go in order. So just so you're aware of that, but it's easier to just do it as it is right now. So the first one, I would just like to have the change that If that Monday falls on a city-observed holiday, the meeting will fall to the Tuesday after the holiday.
All right, everyone all right with that?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yep. Okay.
On 2.04020, I'd like to propose, after new council members have been seated in election years and/or at a meeting in December. And then Ignacio requested the vice mayor position shall be chosen on a rotating basis in sequential order of districts.
Is everyone all right with that?
Agreed.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
2.04030, appointment of special committees. Council, our Vice Mayor Resendez requested that we try and define this a little bit more. So I went online and I found a definition. So special committees are created for clearly specified purposes and as special investigative committees. They expire after they submit their final report. All special committees, and then it says of the city of council shall be appointed by the preceding officer unless otherwise directed by the city council. I think it should be all special committees should be appointed by the mayor or mayor pro tempore in his absence.
All right. Everyone all right with that?
I actually have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm wondering though, does that, Christine, with the language you're proposing, does that still mean that it's subject to the city council's agreement, or is that not the same?
I think it would be not the same. And I'm looking at Rosenberg's Rules of Order for special committees. I didn't get this, actually, that definition. I got that off of the internet.
I would like to make a friendly amendment to it that would maybe be something as simple as subject to council's approval.
Does that work for you, Christine?
Subject to council's consensus?
Approval.
Approval, consensus, it all works for me.
I have a question. What are we subjecting to their approval? Curious.
The way I read it, Vice Mayor, it would be the mayor or the vice mayor's choice. And so, as I understand it currently exists, the committees are chosen by the mayor. I presume that would be the vice mayor in the mayor's absence, but it is currently subject to council's approval.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying. Yes.
This is not in.
So these would be ad hocs, or what would these be, Christine, we're talking about?
Yes, special
Special
committees are
committee.
ad hocs, yes.
Okay. All right. Are you okay with that change, Christine?
So I'll say, all special committees are appointed by mayor or mayor pro tempore, subject, no. Subject,
Subject to council approval or consensus?
council consensus, would that work?
Does that work for you, Mr. Burns?
It does, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
2.04040. All reports, communications, ordinances, resolutions.
Can you scroll up a little bit on that? Thank you.
All reports, communications, ordinances, resolutions, contract documents, and other matters to be submitted to the city council shall be submitted to the city clerk not later than, it said 5 PM, at least 120 hours preceding the date and time. I'm proposing, as it currently is, 2 Thursdays prior to the next city council's meeting by noon, and/or as set by the city clerk to produce the agenda to council. And I wanted to add, by council's requested date. Because currently, and not all members of this council, but prior council has requested that we get agendas to them by Wednesday before the Monday of the meeting, or the Wednesday before the meeting. So in order to meet that, 2 Thursdays prior to the next city council by noon is barely working, but
I think it's important to give you time to put together items correctly. I know sometimes they were rushed, and I didn't think that was a wise idea because it seemed like we were having several meetings where items were coming in at the last minute. So whatever gives you the time you need to do it correctly, I think works.
and then I have the schedule may be adjusted for holidays and trainings.
Okay, is there any questions, council? How do you all feel about that?
Mayor Tim Burns.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Christine, does that, I know that we're speaking about council requests, but how does this coincide with staff reports and they're being submitted to you from the city manager's office?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Burns, I was distracted. What was that?
Okay. Yeah. How does this coincide with city staff reports that are submitted to you for the agenda as well?
So currently, we have a staff report due date of 2 Thursdays prior to the city council meeting at noon.
So this sounds like that would coincide with that, then, correct?
I can honestly tell you that there's still probably one staff report that's really not complete for the agenda I sent out today. The staff reports are probably realistically not ready to go onto an agenda until, at best, Tuesday before the Wednesday I send it out to you. So these are guidelines. I can't imagine what it would be like if that deadline were pushed forward any at all.
But I think the question is, that's the time you need at least, because it gives you more time to prepare the staff reports and everything and have it on the agenda. So that would help us eventually get more information sooner.
Well, it
Rather
helps,
than-
it helps staff submitting the staff reports,
Yes.
get approvals, and correct staff reports on changes that may need to be made for further clarification for council to make a better
Okay.
decision.
All right. Is everyone all right with that?
Yes.
I think-
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's important to give you time to do your job right, so that's helpful. Okay.
The other part of that would be that the schedule may be adjusted for holidays or trainings. So if a holiday falls close to an agenda deadline date or an agenda packet due date, we may push that up a little bit or back a little bit depending on how that falls.
Is that all right with everyone?
Yes.
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 It should be the new revised documents. It's in a folder by itself. We have 4 members in the council chambers who are requesting to have this, and I almost put it on every single laptop in here prior to, and thought, no, I'm going to have it up on the screen. I don't need to, and wish I would have done that now.
Oh, those that are in the
Yeah.
chambers right now?
Yeah.
We're visually challenged.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul's fixing that right now, though.
No problem. We'll wait to get that, you guys get that up.
While we're waiting, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Here you go.
Christine, maybe just a recommendation to define what that adjustment for holiday schedule could be? Like maybe just put like, for example, or whatever, like you had just mentioned.
Sure. Yes, I could definitely add that.
Okay, just to add some clarity. Thanks.
Then lower in A, Councilmember Burns requested that we change the language to be consistent or remove the topic from all other documents. As we go through the other documents, we're gonna find references to agendas. We could probably delete them from those other documents if this is the way we want it to be. Because I'm sure I found one in that policy, rules, and procedures. If that's okay with you, because it's all gonna be one document. So if we decide that this is how we want this language to read, if we find it in any of the other documents, we'll just delete it. Does that work for you, Councilmember Burns?
Yes.
Two 2.04.050, Mayor to decide questions of order. The mayor or mayor pro tempore shall decide all questions of order at city council meetings subject to appeal to the city council, and all such appeals shall be decided by a majority of the members present. Councilmember Burns suggested that we change the language to be consistent or remove it from all other documents.
What would we be changing though? I don't,
He's just asking, he's found it in another document. He's found it in either the council protocols or the rules and procedures, and he's saying, let's just make sure we're consistent.
yeah, well, I agree. I think that's the problem we had. We had so many documents saying different things, so.
So when we find that, and believe me, we'll come across that, we can decide, because I think even as we go through the rules and procedures and all the other documents, we're gonna end up coming back to this one to say, oh, that's this section, and then we can probably delete the other one and keep this one, or decide at that time if there's something
That-
in,
That is part of the Rosenberg rules. It's on there.
yes.
Yeah.
So we're good with that. When we find it, we can come back and see if this is the way we like it, or if we like it in the other one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that all right with everyone? Yeah, I think it is important to follow the Rosenberg rules, so we're doing what all other communities that are following those rules are doing. It's helpful.
do we have consensus on that?
Agree.
Agreed.
Okay.
2.04.080, quorum. A majority of all the members elected to the city council shall constitute a quorum for transaction of business at each city council meeting. Less than a majority may adjourn from time to time. Councilmember Burns suggested we change language to be consistent or remove from all other documents. So if I look in Rosenberg's rules, if this is what we're gonna be going by, and I believe we are all in agreement that we are, yes?
Yes.
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 It states the starting point for a meeting is the establishment of a quorum. A quorum is defined as the minimum number of members of the body who must be present at a meeting for business to be legally transacted. The default rule is that a quorum is one more than half the body. For example, in a 5-member body, a quorum is 3. When the body has 3 members present, it can legally transact business. If the body has less than a quorum of members present, it cannot legally transact business. And even if the body has a quorum to begin the meeting, the body can lose the quorum during the meeting when a member departs, or even when a member leaves the dais. When that occurs, the body loses its ability to transact business until and unless a quorum is reestablished. The default rule is identified above, however, gives way to a specific rule of the body that establishes a quorum. For example, the rules of a particular 5-member body may indicate that a quorum is 4 members for that particular body. The body must follow the rules it has established for its quorum. In the absence of such a specific rule, the quorum is one more than half the members of the body. So I could insert that section here if you're all in agreement.
Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Right there.
I wonder if we can just shorten it by saying, please see Robert, or what is it? Which rules are we using?
Rosenberg.
Rosenberg.
Rosenberg Rules of Order defining quorum or something, just to keep it simple so we don't have to put all that language. I don't know if that's even legal, but that would be my suggestion.
Well, actually, a majority of the members would be 3, and we could
Yeah.
leave it as is.
I would say that that's the minimum we want to have a quorum. If we're doing something different that could cause us problems later. So the quorum is a majority of the members.
So are we, okay, and if we find this again in another document somewhere, we'll just,
So goes a quorum.
Councilmember Burns, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
I'm still, that last section says less than a majority may adjourn from time to time.
Do you want me to remove that?
But yeah, that's not making sense to me. A quorum is a quorum.
Well, less than a majority, and we would have to cancel.
Yeah, well, once we lose a quorum, then the meeting ends, so we'd have to adjourn at that point.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, from the last sentence,
Just remove that?
yeah.
Yeah, it makes it confusing.
Okay. We're all
Well,
in agreement?
I'm sorry, guys, if we go back to that, you might want to specify, once we lose a quorum, the meeting has to be adjourned. That way, that's a little more
Yes.
clear in case there's a confusion over it later. Do you guys feel that's correct?
It
Just
makes it
kind
more,
of clarifies that if we're going to lose a quorum, that we have to adjourn the meeting.
it makes it more defined.
Yeah.
We good there? Does that look good?
Less than majority must adjourn.
Period.
Yeah.
We in agreement?
Agreed.
Yes.
All meetings of the city council shall be open to the public promptly at the hour set by law on the day of each regular meeting. The mayor, members of the city council, the city clerk, the city attorney, and the city manager shall take the regular stations in the council chambers, and the business of the city council shall be considered and disposed. I wanted to remove in the following order because it had a specific order, and we, on occasion, take items out of order. So I wanted to just remove that and say at the bottom, the following items approved by the city manager may be placed on the agenda by the city clerk on items submitted. For each meeting. And then I've listed the agenda as we have it currently. This is what we currently have on our agenda.
Any question? Everybody all right with that?
Yes.
Honor Rick.
I think we're okay
Roland,
there.
you're good with that? Two point zero four one one zero rules of debate. C, Councilmember Resendez requested that we remove and just say, a member once recognized shall not be interrupted when speaking.
I think the only question to that would be if the speaker is being very loud or saying things that are inappropriate during that meeting. I think they should be able to be interrupted. And again, I think Robert's rules covers that. I mean, Rosenberg, I can get used to the Rosenberg rules, which I like much better than Robert's rules, by the way. I think it covers some of that.
Can I just add that typically a call to order is a request that the member who is speaking redirect their comments back to the issue being covered currently by the council. So in other words, a council member would have other opportunities to bring up other issues, but if they wanted to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders, well, I'm sorry, no offense, Mr. Perez. If anyone other than Mr. Perez, Councilmember Perez, wishes to discuss the Las Vegas Raiders, a call to order would be to interrupt that member and ask them to come back to the item that's actually being discussed at that time, as opposed to another item on the agenda or something that they want placed on the agenda, that sort of thing.
I understand, I'm just saying, in this, the way it's worded now, though, a member once recognized shall not be interrupted when speaking could lead to a person that just continues speaking in a way that's not proper in the chambers, and nobody would be able to stop them. Or other than the chair, I don't know what, I'm looking for the Rosenberg deals on this. Anybody else have any ideas there?
I'm trying to find where I wrote that in my notes. What? So I don't remember specifically saying that, so I'm trying to find it in my notes, so I'm looking for it. I'm not sure what I meant or what I was pointing out by that.
Under courtesy and decorum, let's see here. Rules are.
So Christine, I think I pointed out on B, not C. And everyone's recognized, so let me
I'm
look.
sorry, Roland. When I looked at your notes on C, it just says a member once recognized shall not be interrupted when speaking.
Period. Yeah, and I didn't
Yeah,
put
I'm
Y or
sorry.
anything like that.
No.
Yeah, I put.
So I thought that's what you meant on that. I'm sorry.
No, I did
Okay.
not mean to strike everything else out. I'm sorry. I guess I should have been more clear about that. I might have just been taking a note or something, but if I wanted to put a comment, I would have highlighted it and put a comment on the document. So I probably was just taking note of that for myself, but I in no way meant to strike out the rest of that. That was confusing to me too. I'm sorry. I should have been more clear.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so-
I will leave it as is?
Yeah, that's my understanding. What is,
Is that all right with the council? Yeah,
Christine, can you read it out loud, please, as it was? I'm having trouble seeing the font size.
Sure. A member once recognized shall not be interrupted when speaking unless it is to call the member to order or as otherwise provided in the section. If a member while speaking is called to order, the member shall cease speaking until the question of order is determined, and if in order, the member shall be permitted to proceed.
I agree with that language.
yeah, that's fine with me.
yeah, me too, Christine. I think the document I sent you, I was making notes for myself. If there was any notes for you, it was the ones on the side where I put a little comment. So I apologize
Okay,
about
and
that
my
confusion.
apologies too, because we may have another one of those, but okay.
Okay, well, I'll try to follow along with you on my document and yours. Sorry about that.
That's okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're all right with that? Okay.
I have a question about that, where it says, the member shall cease speaking until a question of order is determined. What is the process of the determination? Who determine, is that a consensus? Is that the mayor or pro temp?
The chair, it starts with the chair unless the majority of the council feels otherwise.
Okay.
On E, I was questioning if we should write the definition from Rosenberg's rules of, to be consistent if we adopt the Rosenberg's rules to be used. They have a whole section on rules of debate. On page 13 of Rosenberg's rules, at least on this little tiny book that I gave you.
Do we
And
have to have that, or since we're following the Rosenberg rules, isn't that already a given, or?
we could say,
I mean, a lot of this really, if we look at the point that we're following the Rosenberg rules, we will be following what they have already listed, so we don't have to repeat it. It might make it a little more clear to follow those rules. Otherwise, we might be trying to duplicate something and then miss something and create a problem for ourselves again.
correct.
Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Go ahead, sir.
All right, I was questioning if this was correct. So it says a motion to reconsider any action taken by the city council may be made only on the day such action was taken. I don't think that's how we follow it. I think that we can bring it back, but it has to be one of the people that, how does that go, Jason? Do you know?
Prevailing party?
Yeah, so
Typically-
it's not just only on the day that we made it, unless we're gonna change it. I was wondering about that.
A motion for reconsideration needs to be made during the same meeting as the original motion or at the very next meeting. If it's not made at least by the very next meeting, then the motion is out of order. For instance, if you wanted to make that motion 2 or 3 meetings later, it's out of order.
Okay. So, Christian, I think what I heard you say, were you thinking about just listing all the rules from Rosenberg? Is that what your idea was there?
I'm not sure. Maybe, or maybe just seeing if there was consistency. Because there's like, it's almost 4 pages.
How did the rest of you feel? I mean, I think we need to be clear about the Rosenberg. I think we all have the rules. I think what you have listed here covers those rules, but is it better just to place that or say we follow the Rosenberg rules for debate?
That's what I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor. Are we like, does this document match up with Rosenberg Rules of Orders? And if it does, then we should just reference it. I think we might be saying 2 different things. We don't know that because we didn't cross-check them, right?
I'm looking up the Rosenbergs to see if I can find that section.
What section are you looking for?
So far, I'm on page 14, motion to limit debate.
That's the call for question.
It's the motion to reconsider, so it says, I mean, it's pretty long. It's on page 6 of Rosenberg Rules of Order on
Thank you.
inside the agenda packet.
Motion to reconsider.
And I apologize, I'm noticing that if this is the one that was adopted, the version of Rosenberg's Rules of Order that I use is either older or newer than this one, because this one does specify motion for reconsideration has to be made at that same meeting. I don't see where it has the additional rule that it can be made at the subsequent meeting.
Is there a newer version then that might be out there?
I would have
Mine's
to go back and
revised
check.
2011.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see this is 2011. This is the copy that I received for that also. I don't recall if there's a newer one or if the one I've used is actually an older one. I'd have to check.
Okay. That would be important to know.
I think we need to cross-reference whatever we're noting here, if I may, is stated in the most current Rosenberg Rules of Orders. So, and if it is, then do we want to actually change that part? Like, is that something we want to follow, or do we want to bring it back at the next meeting?
I think we want to try to get the most updated one if there is an update to it. I'm looking online right now, I see the one from the League of Cities is the 2011, like the one you have printed here.
Yeah, that's what I found also.
And you see a motion to reconsider on that? On page 6?
It says at that meeting, it can only be done at that meeting.
It's packet, page 64 in the agenda packet, page 6, and it's the motion to reconsider. It's second paragraph in there.
So shall we put that from Rosenberg's in here? Or is that what this is?
I can tell you, the most recent one I'm finding online right now as we speak is 2011, which appears to be the one in front of us.
Okay,
Yes,
So
it's
add the
11th
language.
edition.
to be consistent with Rosenberg's?
Okay.
I believe the language is consistent with Rosenberg's, but I
okay.
believe our practices are not.
Correct. So maybe city attorney, you could help in this way. If, for an example, somebody wanted to reconsider, they did not do it that night, and we're following these rules, what would be the timeline before it could be reconsidered? Understanding that if they don't do it that night.
Under these rules, it should not come back for 12 months.
It could be like a year long before it can be discussed again.
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, I agree. I think we should just stick to the rules and not start
Creating our own.
bending them or manipulating them, because it's going to get really muddy and confusing. So I would just stick, and we need to adapt our practices to follow these rules, I would think.
I would agree. Is there other comments from council?
Do we agree?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how the other council members, I think
Seems to
we're
make
gonna
sense.
follow Rosenberg, we should be following Rosenberg rules. So we're clear.
That makes sense.
It makes it simple to come
Yeah.
back and say, okay, well, these are the rules. Otherwise, we're gonna start changing rules, and once we go down that path, we're gonna end up in the same situation 10 years from now, where there's a lot of different rules going on. I don't think we want to do that.
Agreed.
And maybe even put like the most recent publishing of Rosenberg Rules of Order, and whatever it is, if they come up with a new version, then we follow those ones and we adapt our practices to that.
Yeah.
Councilmember Spencer, you're agreed?
Yeah, these rules are followed.
Councilmember Burns?
Yes.
Okay.
I think if we're gonna follow the rules, that's good. I think one of the things I saw, and I'm trying to find it here, is as far as abstaining from the votes, how they're counted. I think that does need to be as defined.
Yeah, I have that actually marked where it pops up later because.
Okay, good. Okay. So if we're good with that, I think we should just kind of say we're following the Rosenberg rules, and we should really all take the time to really understand those rules. And just looking at the rules, even the way we conduct the meeting as far as the motions and seconds and then go into debate is something different than what we've been doing. So we're gonna have to start following that format, which actually makes a lot more sense if you
It
think
does.
about it. All right,
The
are
next
we all
section-
good to move forward to the next one?
2.04.140, it's just, no question shall be asked of a city council person. That's just me being weird. And then A, extending time limits. The mayor or mayor pro tem, in the absence of the mayor, has the authority to extend the time limits for members of public speaking or testifying during meetings of the city council. And I'm not sure if I meant to extend time limits, but I know that in the past, and I don't know if it's in Rosenberg's rules, but I know that our council's been very good about letting everyone speak and have their 3 minutes. But I know that there were times when it may not have been possible. We may have had to set a special council meeting to do that. But there are times where we may group. If we have 30 people in the chambers that want to speak on one subject, I know that there have been times where we'll let and give that group a choice of either having 5 members speak for 3 minutes or 1 member speak for 15 to try to cut back on the time, because maybe we have a larger agenda that evening and we're not able to accommodate the 30 people here at 3 minutes each.
If I can, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Christina, it does say that in the Rosenberg Rules of Order. It says
Oh.
debate and discussion should be focused, but free and open. In the interest of time, the chair may, however, limit the time allotted to speakers, including members of the body. So I think that covers exactly what you were saying.
Okay.
That's on page 7 of the agenda packet, Rosenberg Rules of Order, page 65 of your packet.
Okay.
Okay, that does cover that. That is in there. Everybody all right with that? Again, going back to the Rosenberg, I think this is really going to save us a lot of time and effort here, just following the Rosenberg.
And then I could just put extending time limits, and I'll put either the Rosenberg's language in there or say per Rosenberg's Rules of Order.
The latest updated.
Version, yeah. Per the latest version of Rosenberg's Rules of Order. And maybe I
Well,
could even put that at
We
the
have
beginning.
to, I think what we need to do though is address, are we following the 2011 or is there a newer one? And when a new one comes out, then we would point out that we're following the newest revision.
Correct.
That way we're all in agreement to follow the new one when it does come out.
Which leads us to the 2.04150, where silence constitutes an affirmative vote. I can't find anywhere in Rosenberg's Rules of Order where it talks about silent votes, but it talks about abstentions. And I believe an abstention, Jason, is a silent vote?
Well, an abstention, you just officially note that you're abstaining, and then it doesn't count as a yes or a no. So the way that this addresses it is a little differently, where you literally, you won't vote yes and you won't vote no, and you won't state that you're abstaining and you don't recuse yourself.
So
I think-
Rosenberg's does not address that at all, but
It does address it. It talks about the body can decide that, I think it's the present, members present. So if somebody decided to abstain, it would be either a yes or, I believe, a no on
I
it.
found the language for it.
You found it?
Yeah, it's page 5 in the rules, and then it's packet page 63. It says, vote counting starts to become complicated when members vote abstain, or in the case of a written ballot, cast a blank or unreadable ballot. Do these votes count? And if so, how does one count them? The starting point is always to check the statutes. I don't know what that means, Mr. Epperson, maybe you can help us.
Yeah, I think what they meant to say is the starting point is always to check the statutes and what rules the local government has adopted on that. It's my vague recollection, by the way, I should say, that there was an appellate court decision on this exact same issue sometime in the last 5 or 6 months, and unfortunately, I don't remember which way the court ruled on that. So what I would ask is that since this will presumably be coming back, you allow me to go back, look up that decision, and then we can incorporate that into 2.04150.
If I can, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
It then goes on to say, after consulting the state statute, step number 2 is to check the rules of the body. If the rules of the body say you count votes of those present, then you treat abstentions one way. However, if the rules of the body say you count votes of those present and voting, then you treat abstentions a different way. And if the rules of the body are silent on the subject, then the general rule of thumb and default rule is that you count all the votes that are present and voting. Do you want to clarify that, Mr. Epperson?
Yeah, the reason it's so challenging is because it's not particularly clarified. But I think that regardless of what that says, it addresses the same point I was getting to before, which is I need to check and see what that recent court decision said, and then we'll have to adopt that regardless of what this 2011 11th edition version of Rosenberg's rules says or what our municipal code says. We can incorporate that rule in and go from there.
It does keep going on about it. There's quite a few paragraphs about it.
Yeah, it is a little confusing.
Yeah.
It is important. I know in the past there's been circumstances where people had abstained because they didn't want their vote registered, but by abstaining, they knew it was going to pass. And I thought that was kind of odd. I thought, if you're going to be on the council, you should be voting one way or the other and not abstaining so the public knows your vote, basically.
If I can, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
It closes by saying, like, if you're there and you're present and voting, so you're counted as a quorum, then if you're going to vote to abstain, then you really can't do that because your vote is a vote. So a silent vote essentially is what did you say? Either a yes or a no vote. I'm sorry.
No,
But you can't-
or no vote, yeah.
Yeah, so you can't be there and define a quorum, but then not vote on an item. So you would have to essentially vote.
So in that case, what you would do is you would abstain from the conversation, but you would still be counted as a vote as a no. Yeah, I think this is something the city attorney should do a little more research on and get some more clarity. It is confusing. I know in the past, as I said, I've remember seeing a few times where people would abstain, although they were heavily in favor of it before, and then abstain from the vote rather than say how they felt about it, knowing it was going to pass anyway. So I thought that was kind of odd and something we probably should be clarifying.
So my question is in that same section, it says, can a member vote absent or count me as absent? And then it says the ruling on this is up to the chair. The better approach is for the chair to count this as if the member had left his or her chair and is actually absent. That, of course, affects the quorum. However, the chair may also treat this as a vote to abstain, particularly if the person does not actually leave the dais. So I don't know if that is the same as a silent vote or not voting, but I would think a silent vote is, in a way, an abstention. I don't know.
Let's have the city attorney do a little more research on this and bring that back because it is complicated.
Yeah, I'll find out what that recent court decision said and about whether or not you have to count those as yay votes or nay votes. And come
That would
back to
certainly help us to the next meeting.
Thank you. While the city council is in session, the member shall preserve order and decorum, and a member shall neither by conversation or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings or the peace of the city council, nor disturb any member while speaking, or refuse to obey the orders of the city council or its presiding officer, except as otherwise provided in this chapter. And then B, I was going to add, while city council is in session, all members shall refrain from texting, emailing, or passing notes.
I would say instead of, all members shall, instead of saying shall refrain, you just take out refrain, shall not, or shall not text, email, or, shall refrain. I want to make sure it's clear, but I think in the past we've had this problem, and I don't think it's one of those things where it's up to somebody to feel like, well, in this case, I decided it was important to send a text. I think if we're going to be texting or emailing, that should be public record. How does the council feel about that?
Tim Burns, I agree.
Okay.
I agree with that, but there has been a couple times where it's like, I'll go to my phone to search on the map to see what location we're talking about. So, I mean, I agree
That's
with
fine.
what you're saying.
That's
yeah.
fine.
But-
We're just talking about communicating with others.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the city manager and I wanted to ask for an exception for staff, although it just does say members. Maybe we could add city council members, because I know that there's times I forget to hit the timer button and someone will text me and say timer, and I'm like, ugh, and then I hit the timer button, or Paul and I might be communicating, or something may be happening in closed session where we're having to use text. So.
Yeah, no, I meant more for the council members. And again, this is just as far as conversations going back and forth. If obviously if the staff is having to send a message, that probably should be made clear to the public too, to say, or just publicly say, inform the council members of an issue with any of the conversations or information that's still needed.
Yeah, I would say it's not conversations related to a topic. It's usually we're
Coordinating.
Coordinating things like upcoming things or questions from staff to see if we, if there's other information out there that we can grab. So that's why we kind of say, maybe say all council members, because, I mean, we are trying to coordinate things behind the scenes without having to get up or speak while.
And a council member may
Probably.
ask the city manager a question. He may send a text out to somebody who may be coming back with an answer, so.
It makes sense.
And again, I think as long as we're disclosing it to the public, and that's the whole point of this, making sure anything we're doing there is disclosed to the public.
So is this an agreement?
Agreed.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, that's me.
That's good timing.
Section 2.04.280. This is an addition that I wanted to add in there, that per Government Code Section 365164, the salary of council members may be increased beyond the amount provided in the subdivision by an ordinance or by an amendment to an ordinance, but the amount of the increase shall not exceed an amount equal to 5% for each calendar year from the operating date of the last adjustment of the salary in effect when the ordinance or amendment is enacted. No ordinance shall be enacted or amended to provide automatic future increases in salary. I only wanted to add that because that is part of Government Code 36516. And I think it's probably been since, I don't know when the last time was council even got an increase, to be honest with you. So Brett?
I believe it was like 20-plus years. I had to look into this like 5 years ago. I'm sorry, I don't remember the date of how far back it went.
I remember we looked back at this at one time. One of the council members pointed out that exactly that this hadn't been raised in years. And I think there was a section in the state code that pointed out that those increases could be taking place every year according to some formula they had, the state had for general law cities.
Correct.
And, but I don't think it means that we should make up for lost time. I think it is what it is, and we follow whatever the state procedure is on this. And it wasn't very, what the amount was, but it was relatively small.
It could be 5% each calendar year. And I looked that up and I plopped that Government Code section in there. So I just thought if you were okay with it, I could add it to our Hollister Municipal Code.
How do you guys all feel about that?
I had always just assumed that was the case. Like the Board of Supervisors, you can always say, bring it up for discussion, right? I don't know if you need to define it on there.
I'd rather see it defined.
Maybe it could be a cost of living following that, but no more than 5%. It can be brought up each year.
Mayor Velasquez, Tim
Go ahead,
Burns.
sir. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I'm actually fine as it is. I don't think any of us got into this to make money. And I did have a question that since I sent my requested revisions for consideration, I know it came up during the SNP bus conversation in the county that apparently the county commissioners get some sort of a expense fund. I don't know what it is or the specifics, where they're allocated X amount of dollars a year to do different things in their district with, and I don't understand it clearly, but I would like to put that out on the table for council consideration, and perhaps yourself or one of the previous council members has a greater understanding of that, because there would be a benefit to having some of that. And I know other councils have some sort of a fund where they can use those resources for things in their districts.
So the county, their members, they get paid about $50,000 a year. Then they have an allowance, I believe, $3,500 a year to, besides their $50,000 to use in their districts. I think that's probably what you're referring to, the $3,500. Yeah. I don't know, we have $2,500 that allocated each year for each of us for training. That might be, if you don't want to use it for training or something, you can use it in your district. Personally, it seems kind of odd to me to use government money to enhance things for your, not for, I wouldn't say for yourself, I don't want to say for yourself, but to do different things in your district. I think sometimes we're so passionate about things, we just end up using our own money instead of government dollars. I've always thought that was kind of odd as far as the way the county does that. But that's up to all of you.
Mayor, to add to that topic, it would help us, like in engineering, when almost every year we get requests for warrant analysis for a stop sign. That would help us make that a little bit more expedient, but that could be the idea, is that when we talk about the budget, that there is a certain amount and maybe define what can be used for that. But that's like I say, it's up to the council, and the five of you set the policy of what you would want.
So you're saying we could have something where, say for an example, that warrant, to do that study, maybe a $10,000 study, and then we'd have so many dollars each council member can use towards those types of.
Correct.
Interesting thought. So use for like city, not so much giveaway to groups, but to better the city or
Correct.
help.
Yeah, or if you want to fix a sidewalk because you feel like, that's something you want to do in your district.
Oh, okay.
Something.
That's a better idea. I like that idea.
Yeah, but that would be more of a budget time to discuss, probably not here in the municipal code.
Right.
Unless you want to add it in, that will be budgeted every year.
I just would say be careful if you're fixing a sidewalk, because what you do
Oh.
for one, you
I
have
know,
to do for
that's-
everybody.
That's what I was thinking about
no.
too.
The
But
minute you do that, you're in trouble. You're right, city clerk. Everybody's gonna wonder why you didn't do it for their sidewalk.
Correct. Yeah, but
Um,
like I say, it seems like every year somebody puts in a request for a stop sign or stoplight analysis or something like that.
It does, I think the way we've handled this in the past has pretty much kept us out of trouble.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I'm,
yeah.
as far as dollars, I agree with Mr. Burns. I'm in no hurry to try to get anything more. I think we all do this pretty much as we volunteer our time. But I do think, eventually there is gonna have to be an increase. We do know it does cost all of us dollars to be involved. And I think there was one council member that was a couple of years back that was pointing out that he's paying the city to be a council member. So I think we do need to have some type of adjustment yearly, so it just doesn't get so out of whack. Because you can imagine if we don't change something now, 20 years from now, it's almost going to be a joke about the $400 to be on the council. But again, that's up to everyone else. Any other ideas on that?
And Councilmember Burns, I think, I understand what you're saying about the Board of Supervisors having a fund to do things like the SNP bus, but I think our council's pretty good about placing an item like that on the agenda, discussing it, and setting an amount to give for that, so.
I can absolutely support what the mayor said in reference to maybe just putting in the salary element, either consistent with a COLA. I think that, once a year COLA, or even I could live with the 5%. Again, 5% of $400 is not a whole lot. And so, and I absolutely can agree with the city manager in regards to maybe this becoming a budget conversation. The motivating factor for me wasn't SNP, but it was, I recall there was a moment where Councilmember Perez advocated for a resident in his district. And I believe it was to get a ramp put up, a development or a physically disabled person, and he needed a ramp. And so he was able to, use his connections to get that done, but that's not always the case where those connections exist. So I just thought it was something for conversation, and I'm fine where whatever direction council chooses to go.
Okay. So we're okay leaving this as it is then?
Fine by me.
Yes.
Yeah, and then as a council, we can talk about it maybe at the beginning of the year, and we could talk about following a COLA, or if that council at the time decides they want a 5%, they can talk about it.
I'm certainly open to revisiting it soon. And honestly, I'm totally open to that.
Okay, so we're okay with this then?
Agreed.
Okay,
Jason,
move on then.
that's okay?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
sounds good.
And that's it. We've gone through the first document.
Okay. Anything else from council on that section at all? No? All right. Bring on the next one. Code of Ethics? Are those in the chambers, do they have that document there for them?
Yes.
Can you see it on your screen?
We can see it here, yes.
So this is the proposed code of ethics and conduct that I was thinking if we were going to insert this in its entirety into our Hollister Municipal Code, I would like to do it right as the beginning, prior to any of these other meetings and times and places. And Councilmember Burns submitted this, and the only changes that were requested on item number 12, Mayor Velasquez asked for no personal meetings with lobbyists, developers, third parties, or other entities that are trying to influence city policy or obtain project approvals. All discussions shall take place at a publicly noticed meeting of the city council.
How does everyone feel about this?
No, you cannot keep us from meeting with people. We have to be available. We are elected officials. Whether they are a lobbyist, a developer, a kindergarten teacher, they come to us, they present their project to us. We don't tell them if we're gonna vote yes or no. You can't expect us to listen at a meeting and have it all dumped on us that night. We will be here till 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm gonna honestly tell you, Mayor Velasquez, this is illegal. You can't do it.
Well, I don't think it's illegal, but I think it's important for us to be transparent to the public. We know.
We can be transparent. You choose not to meet with people to find out what they want. The rest of us choose. I don't meet with every developer that calls me or every lobbyist. But if somebody calls me and says, do you have 10 minutes? I'd like to talk to you about something on the agenda that's coming up. I'm going to meet with them because I want to hear what they have to say.
I would say if you're going to meet with them and.
I don't agree with this,
Go ahead.
and I don't
Go ahead.
think it's right. I'm sorry. No, I vote no, no, no.
I just, again, I feel it's very important that we are completely transparent to the public so they know we're having meetings or doing different things. I think it's important to our community. For too many years, I've seen instances of meetings behind the scenes, and there's been several instances where developers have, or certain lobbyists have met with certain people and not with others and got what they needed. And I just think that's something the public needs to be involved with, or they need to know those conversations we're having. And if a major project is happening, if it takes more than 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, I think it's important to the public to hear about it and have those conversations publicly rather than behind the scenes. I've always felt that's just not the best way to handle city business.
Well,
My opinion.
and I agree with you. If, you know, meet with these, when they call you, meet with them. I met with, I have a prime example. Christopher Ranch, when I first met with Joe Giacalone, he had said he tried to get a hold of you and you wouldn't return any of his calls. So, and that was when this project first came up. I never told him how I was gonna vote. I listened to what they said, and that was it. You know, if we're gonna keep this out, but make it, take all this out and put in that, we acknowledge at the beginning when this, if something like this happens, we've met with the person beforehand and talked to them. And they still come and say everything that they say in a meeting because it does get out to the public. It's just, I don't think, for you to want to put this in there, say no personal meetings with any lobbyists, developers, third parties, or other entities is wrong. You can't stop a person, a council person, any government official from meeting with anybody.
Well, let's look at it from a different perspective. Let's think about this where a developer or lobbyist came to a city council meeting without any one of us having a previous conversation and explain their project and what they're willing to do to enhance their project to make it more beneficial to the public. And the public was there to hear it, and each of us were able to give our input at that time. How much better of a project we would have from some of these lobbyists compared to a lobbyist finding three people that are in agreement with what they're offering and ignoring the other two, whether you're for it or against it. This is a chance for us to, again, try to be upfront, transparent with the public, and have the public involved from the very beginning in some of these discussions. And if it takes 2 meetings because they present what they're proposing to us, and then we come back at another meeting, whether to approve it or deny it, the benefit is to the public. And that's why we're here. As we just pointed out earlier, none of us are making money from this. And we're here to benefit the community and make it a better place to live for all of us. So I just think, unfortunately, there's been times where things were happening behind the scenes that just never should have happened. And we owe it to the public to do it right and be transparent. Those are my feelings on it.
And I agree with you. And like I said, when they call you and ask to meet with you, meet with them. Don't ignore them. You can't, no, it's not right. You can't order a government official not to meet with people. We have to meet with people all the time. What if somebody then this says I can't meet with anybody in my district because they might have something that they want to talk to me about on the agenda. So I'm not available to a constituent.
We're talking about, again, lobbyists, developers, third party that have
entities.
Financial interests. A constituent in your district that needs to have some help on something they're doing with their home or something else.
No.
Different.
I'm talking about this one phrase, or other entities that are trying to influence city policy or obtain project approvals. What if somebody in my district has a great interest in, say, a new shopping center, and they want to talk to me about it? The way you have this written, I can't talk to them about it because that would be a special interest or entity that's trying to influence a city council member. So you are actually also putting it out to where we won't be able to meet with our constituents if they have something that they're interested in that's coming up on the agenda.
Well, I think you pointed out that would be a development.
No,
And
I'm talking about just an average citizen of this community that has an interest in something that is going to be planned in this community. And if they call me up, I'm gonna have to, oh no, I'm sorry, we can't meet with you, I can't talk to you about it.
Well, think of it again from a different perspective. Say, great, we're going to be discussing it at this next meeting, and it's to the public, and we're going to hear about it from the developer, and you can give your input at that time so everyone can hear your ideas. I just, again, I've seen this for too many years now. And I just think it's time we start changing it to make it transparent to the public all the way around and get their input. And really, again, if a developer or lobbyist came before the city council without having the opportunity to solicit 3 votes before that, think of how much better some of these projects could have been and how much better input we would have had from the public. And at the end of the day, more support from the public. Because if they're there hearing it as we are, and they're involved in the conversations, they're gonna give good input. And one thing I've heard over and over from the public is how much they wanna be involved in these things. And one thing I've learned from the public is how good they are at filling some of these things out and really asking for what should be done right in the first place. So I just think it's a time for a change, and we should just be fully transparent with the public.
If I can, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Is this legal, Jason?
Thank you. I've been up there for 2 years, and one of the rules say that we have to disclose every time we had a conversation. How many times do you think we've seen that, or I've seen that in the 2 years that I've been there? Right before we have a meeting with these lobbyists, special interest developers, how many times do you think people have actually disclosed, oh, I had a meeting with them?
When I'm talking.
I'm sorry, it's my turn. Can I speak?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Very few times. And I've been up there. I've been on the other side. The lobbyists and developers do, in fact, get their 3 votes, and they give information to other council members or members that are voting, and they don't even bother to reach out to the other ones. So then we're blindsided up there. You know, all of a sudden, there's 3 people that have all this information to consider, and we haven't even had the chance to have that. I think it's a fair thing to ask to have. If they would like, they can send us all some type of electronic correspondence. They can send us all the information ahead of time, but they need to do it to all of us. It's not fair. I've been on the flip side of this. It's a huge problem. I think that we can put some language to address the councilwoman's concerns about constituency. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. We always want to respond to our constituents. And they don't, more than anything, I think it's people that have a lot of money to make or to lose based on the decisions that we make. And it's been a bit of a problem here for quite some time. So I'm completely for this. I think we need to keep everything open and transparent. And if we would follow the rules in the beginning and we would disclose that we had those conversations, we wouldn't have to consider putting this there, but it just hasn't been a very common practice in my experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the other council members?
Mayor Velasquez, Tim Burns.
Go ahead, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, sir. For the city manager, Mr. Miller, can you confirm that the city has a practice in development? I don't know what the correct acronym is, but is it like maybe a development review committee? Is there something like that for the city?
Yes, it's the DRC, Development Review Committee, and yeah, we'll meet when a project has been presented to planning.
Okay, and so when that happens, who typically sits on that? Who's typically a member of the DRC for the city of Hollister?
It's planning, it's building, myself, fire, PD, the yard, the school districts are invited, the county's invited, and Sunny Slope is invited.
Thank you. And does the DRC make a recommendation to the applicant as in regards to what they need to do to be within the rules or the law? And I don't know that Ganner city staff support would be the appropriate way of saying it, but does the DRC make a recommendation on things if they can move forward or not?
We don't really make recommendations. We make the requirements. So if it's not meeting a fire code or, there's a violation to the zoning, we just go through to make sure that everything is up to the different requirements.
Okay, and so then when the development is proposed to move forward, it gets agendized on the city council to make, or prior to that, it may go to the planning commission. Would that be correct?
Yeah, correct. It will go to the planning commission, it only goes to the city council if there is somebody that appeals the planning commission's vote.
Okay, and so, and when it comes to the city council, the limited experience I have as a council member, it seems that the council receives a presentation from staff, and typically there's some sort of a recommendation to either approve it or to give direction, correct?
Correct.
So I'm wondering, thank you, City Manager, for the clarification. Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if there's a way to phrase this so that I agree with Vice Mayor Resendez that clearly we want to be able to reach out and speak to our constituents and address their concerns, but I'm also, I have been approached on multiple occasions by different people on projects, and I just presumed it was simply as a direct result of the 2-2 or the lack of a fifth council member for about an 8-month period. And so I would like, I don't know if there's a way to alter the council's process to where maybe once a month we have a special meeting to just hear developers and what their proposed projects are as a council. I like the idea of everybody hearing things at the same time. My suspicion is Councilmember Perez and I are playing catch up on a lot of these things. And so my hope would be that as we get caught up, we will then be able to approach these things as one council. And so everybody hears the same thing at the same time, because I do think there's a definite potential benefit to, you know, having the council at large hear it, because we see things with similar but sometimes different visions and eyes and are representing our districts. And so I don't know. There are times when I feel like when development projects come forward, the staff's presentation is pretty good, but I'm not convinced that necessarily the developer or their agent has. I don't know if they feel rushed or if there's a 3-minute limitation. But I would like to maybe suggest that we give them more time, but I would like to address things more as a council versus being educated individually. And I don't necessarily think that those that have educated me have solicited my vote. I do believe it was simply trying to make me aware of what maybe the past history has been. But I do like the idea of seeing things as a group collectively. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, sir. I really, really like the idea you had right now of maybe a special meeting with, to discuss some of the projects or different things. That way the public knows this date we're discussing this project and this project. Come listen in and they're gonna give their pitch to us, what they're trying to do, and we can ask questions of them. I really do like that idea. I think it's, again, it meets what we're trying to do. Be more open to the public, transparent, yet giving any developers the opportunity to do it right. So I like that idea. I would really be in favor of having special meetings, maybe once or every other month for developments to come through so we can have those type of discussions. So how does this?
If I may.
Go ahead, sir.
So with that, Councilman Burns, are you suggesting that we don't also, or not allowed to visit with developers individually also? Because my district, I cover everything. I don't know, so I don't think anyone has, not unless anyone else has industrial in their area too. So it's like, it's not just the developers for the houses that I meet with everybody, complaints, parks departments, talking about different parks and stuff. Just for me, personally, it's like, when I see things, when I can go and see things, I get a better understanding. And I don't think that I'm influenced by the developer that's trying to bring in a project. I think I'm getting more information and trying to see where things are going to be laid out and stuff. I like the idea of coming together as a council, but I don't think we should be limited to just as a council either, because I have my own thoughts and my own feelings, and I'd hate to think that just because someone wants to come and lobby me, that they're going to be able to change my thoughts, because I'm not that way. And but I do like the council. I like everybody getting the same information and having the opportunity to do the same visual inspection or see the plans like I do also. So I like I said, so I like everyone coming together to get a presentation, but I don't know if it should be just limited just to that.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So just to explain, the reason you have to disclose you had a conversation with somebody in private at a public meeting is to avoid anybody asking those questions. So if we've had those conversations with people and we have not disclosed those at meetings, we're already violating that. So I think in order to avoid violating that, I do agree with the suggestion of having like a town hall. Maybe we can start off every other month, like on a Saturday or something, because it just hasn't been happening. It hasn't been happening. And it does put some people over an advantage or disadvantage when we're getting presented that information on the dais, or when they feel, the lobbyists feel that they've already got those votes locked in. So just to be more transparent and opening to the public, I think it's a really good idea because it just hasn't been happening in the past. Thank you.
And so if I may,
Go ahead, sir.
so I didn't know about having to report at the beginning of the meeting, but I will from now on. I have nothing to hide about anything, meeting with anybody, but I just it gives me a clearer picture of what's going on, and that's why I'm in support of having the all the projects brought before the council, but not limited to. That's it.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like most of us are in favor of having it brought before the council in a discussion in a meeting, so we're all hearing it at the same time. You know, I can tell you, you know, over the years, I have had situations where people that were proposing development had come to me and wanted to meet, and I asked a few questions, and they would make a comment of, you know, we know you haven't supported something in the past, but we're doing this, and we have, you know, 3 people that already support this, and we think it's important that you join in that support, which of course I responded with like, well, that's already violating the law here. So I just think it sounds like we're right there as far as agreeing that we should be having these meetings in public. And, you know, if you think about it, it really, at the end of the day, it saves you time. It saves you time because you're meeting at one time in front of the public instead of individually with different developers to have these discussions. And again, it's transparent. It's open to the public. The public will know we're discussing development proposals at a certain meeting, and it'd get more people involved in that process. So I like the idea of those meetings. I think this item here, as is redlined here, all discussions shall take place at a publicly noticed meeting of the city council, could be that special meeting. And I think it really will help us in the end, and it'll avoid a lot of that discussion of people having meetings behind the scenes and so on. So I just think it helps, again, to be more transparent. So that's
I
what
can make one more suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
I would just suggest that we add some type of language that excludes meeting constituents that don't have a financial interest in, I would say like a neighborhood thing, sidewalk thing, those types of things, if that's
I
okay.
agree. Yeah, and I think this here, it says no personal meetings with lobbyists, developers, third parties, or other entities. Does not mean to private citizens. I think we all have to do that. We get those phone calls, I'm sure all of us do, about the parks, as Mr. Perez said, or different issues in our city. We always want to be able to do that. Just talking about issues that basically are for large scale developments or things where money can be made. And again, you have the lobbyists or third parties trying to lobby us for that. I think that's all I'm talking about. But I would agree with you. to add that in. So does that work with everyone?
I think that something should be added, that if I have an opportunity to meet with somebody, that everyone else should have that same opportunity.
Well, and I think that's what we're trying to get to, and that's why, it goes back to having that meeting where we're all together learning about it, or giving our suggestions at the meeting, or hearing from the public at the meeting at the same time.
Well, and I see what you're saying, and at the same time, it's like, District 1, constituents, sorry.
Constituent?
They voted me to represent them, and with that, I think there comes some trust that I'm not gonna be swayed by a lobbyist or a developer. Just because I have a meeting with them does not mean that I'm gonna just vote their way. And that's how I feel about that.
Thank you. So again, I think this does cover a lot of that. I think the idea of special meetings for some of these developments is a great idea, and something probably past due. We should have done that long ago. It's a great idea. I agree with Mr. Resendez about adding with the private or our constituents. It's a different situation to discuss normal city issues. So I know there's some back and forth on this. Is the majority all right with it, with these items?
No.
I certainly,
Go ahead.
Who was first? I'm sorry, Mr. Resendez?
I'm sorry. I was just saying I certainly am in agreement with it. Thank you.
Mr. Burns?
Thank you, sir. I'm wondering also, because I absolutely understand, and I've heard both council members, Spencer and Perez, and perhaps maybe there could be some sort of a compromise where I know I've been contacted by people for projects that are not in my district. And so maybe I hear Councilmember Perez saying he wants to meet with people in his district, regardless of what their what their conversation is. And I think I heard that from Councilmember Spencer as well. And I can live with that, but maybe we find a language that would limit it to only the council member meeting with those people in their district. That way, I've heard your concern too, as well as the vice mayor's, where people will come to council and they've already got 3 votes. And so at that point, it becomes a mute conversation. And so I'm just looking for some common ground here that maybe we could go that direction. I could also live with it as proposed.
Okay. How do the rest of you feel about that?
I like that. I mean, I can, if it's in my district, it concerns me.
Okay. Councilor Spencer, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, as long as if it's in my district, I will meet with whoever.
Okay, Mr. Resendez, how do you feel about that?
I'd like an opportunity for us to all see it. So I'd like to keep it as proposed and not discriminate against districts.
So when I said about agree to, so I still like the coming together as a full council, but being able to meet with the people just in my district. That's what I was talking about. And I'd still love to have the once a month or every other month coming together as a council to get a presentation on it.
Okay, so I can agree. I think Councilman Burns' idea, I can live with that. I can say I'm not going to meet with anyone because I think it's all your districts, but I think if it's in your district, you probably having that first understanding what is going to be talked about, I can live with that. And then present it to the full council at a special meeting. I'm all right with that.
Agreed.
I think there's a consensus on that then, to do it that way?
Agreed.
Any suggested language for me?
I'm sorry, this is Jason Epperson. Honestly, that language is gonna be a little, it's gonna have to be crafted carefully, so I would suggest that Christine, you and I go back and
Thank
take a
you.
look at it and try to make it match what the council members want and bring that back to the council. And if they wanna modify it at that time, then it can be modified then. That's
Well,
just my
look at
recommendation.
that and also look at, would that create another issue legally if only one person gets to hear it before?
Yeah,
Just so we make sure we're covering everything legally.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, everyone all right with that then? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Let's move on to the next one.
Mayor Velazquez, Tim
Yes.
Burns.
Go, sir.
I also want to briefly just agree with our city clerk that I think that this document should absolutely be the very first in the municipal code, because I believe they do create the foundation for our code of conduct and ethics. And so I would also like to see this come first.
It's fine with me. Is that all right with everyone else?
This, it's fine.
Thank you. On page 4 of this document, it's the elected and appointed officials' conduct with the public in public meetings. It states that ask for clarification, but avoid debate and argument with the public. Only the chair, not individual members, can interrupt a speaker during a presentation. However, a member can ask the chair for a point of order if the speaker is off topic or exhibiting behavior or language the member finds disturbing. And it was just questioned, how can we enforce this?
Maybe a city attorney can weigh in on this?
Yes, I have to tell you, unfortunately, I don't know if there's any question that I get asked more often than exactly this one. And the reason that it's asked so much is because, unfortunately, California has not given us the tools to really give a definite answer. The only answers are ugly and are probably things that all 5 of you would reject almost out of hand. So it's an ongoing problem. It's not unique to Hollister, and there's unfortunately not a perfect answer. The typical answer doesn't always satisfy everyone, because the typical answer is whoever's holding the gavel, that is the chair, has the right to gavel someone down. And if the council wants to overrule that on a motion or a point of order or something like that, it can. However, in none of those circumstances does it really solve the problem of a person who is completely disrupting the meeting and not allowing the meeting to progress. The only answer that has ever worked for anyone across the state of California is for it to be voted on and the person is told to be silent. And if they're not silent, then whether it's a sheriff's deputy or the chief of police or anybody else, forcibly removes the person, which, as you can imagine, can happen. Happens more often when it's a member of the public. It happens very, very seldom when it's an elected member. And I'm guessing that's not, for obvious reasons, that's a last result. So there simply is no good answer to this. It requires a lot of good faith and cooperation on the members of the board or the council or the committee, whichever the case happens to be. So like I said, I get asked this question a lot. There's no great answer to it. And sometimes, as much as I hate to say this, the answer is that we suffer through it in one way or another. And I think we've seen that here in this chamber as well. So if we're looking for a magic bullet, I'm sorry, there is not one. It's an evolving thing, and we see what other communities have done, what's been successful, what hasn't, and try to evolve our own methods and procedures accordingly.
Can I maybe make a recommendation for council here? I agree with everything you're saying. It's a little difficult. I think maybe, sometimes we all get emotional. And sometimes it gets heated. But I think if we can all agree on something, we can take that step we need to get to. And maybe the answer is something as simple as, after the 3rd time of pointing out somebody's out of order, we all agree that we'll take a recess, a 5-minute recess, rather than continuing going back and forth with shouting and screaming. We could just say, okay, we're going to do a 5-minute recess. Automatically, it happens after the 3rd time somebody's being warned about being out of order. How does everyone feel about that? Or the second time or the first time, you guys
So,
decide.
well, yeah, because that's what I was thinking. It's like, okay, but, so they got 3 minutes, and it's like, well, how do we, 3 minutes, you do that 3 times, it's like, then they're pretty much done with their 3 minutes, unless it's a council
Well, I
member.
think usually what happens is when somebody's out of order, I'll point it out and they keep it up. I'll say, please, you're out of order. And if they do it again, again, I'll point out, please, be respectful, and they do it again. And then we'd say, okay, we're going to have a 5-minute recess. And just whether that's through a council person or through a member of the public, usually time calms things down.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but it does. And unfortunately, there's have been time where people in the public have decided to just keep screaming and yelling, but
I think,
99% of the time it's handled just from something as simple as that.
I think this section is specifically conduct with the public in public meetings.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I didn't even know that this was, that they weren't allowed to personally attack us, I'll be honest, until we recently talked about it and we read the rules. So thank you for that, because a lot of that was going on, but I don't know, I think it depends on what the violation is, right? If somebody is outright screaming and cussing and yelling or threatening, like, that needs to be objected right away. I don't think we can limit it to three times and then you're out or whatnot. So I think we have to just lean on you for your discretion and as the chair to be able to control those types of situations. We have law enforcement officers there, but if we could just make it a habit and all agree, if we're getting singled out, and it does say that in rules of orders, and we're not talking about either something that we address as a council or a specific policy or topic, then we should just all agree that they're out of order. But I think we just have to lean on you to make those decisions, because I don't know if somebody's making a threat that we're going to wait 3 times for them to make that threat before we actually say that they're completely out of order,
Well, I think what's happened in the past is usually the great majority of time when I point out the point of order and please be respectful and those things, they stop. Every once in a while you have a person that keeps going and then you can repeat it. And then again, we can have a recess at that point. There are all kinds of issues legally, as I think the city attorney was pointing out. And I don't think we ever want to get to a situation where we're trying to drag somebody out of a meeting. A lot of times, those that are causing the disturbance are hoping that's exactly what will happen, which makes it worse. And we've seen that happen at one of the supervisors meeting. And we don't want to get into that situation. So usually I think a break handles the situation. And of course, if somebody's being absolutely belligerent, I'll call it right there, the recess right then and there. But more often than not, people will settle down after the first warning.
So, if I may?
Go ahead, sir.
So, say 10 seconds in, we'd call a recess. And does that speaker get to come back and do his next 2 minutes and 50 seconds? Or is there 3 minutes done?
That is a great question. Usually they can continue their 3 minutes, but that would be something again with the council if we want to at that point say, look, you've been warned and you haven't complied, so we're moving to the next speaker.
So just a suggestion, so it's like, say we break at we take a recess at 1 minute, that maybe it's beneficial if when you call the recess, you can mention how much time is left. I mean,
yeah.
Just to avoid another pointed topic for them to yell at.
I get what you're saying. They want to continue with their 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I
As long
think
as they're
now under the world of Zoom, obviously it's easier to handle than it was when people are there at the podium. But I understand what you're saying. So they would continue their allotted time. Is your point? And if they continue, then we could just cut them from that point, cut them off, and move to the next speaker. Is the council's all right with that?
Mayor Velasquez, Tim Burns.
Go ahead, sir.
I personally would like to see them forfeit their time and opportunity to speak at that particular meeting. And I'd also think although the council chambers are quite small, that I like the idea of you calling for a recess, because if there's no audience, then that helps solve the problem. And turning the microphone off often can help a little bit, I suspect. But I would like to see them forfeit their right to continue at that point. If they're that blatant and disrespectful or menacing, I think there has to be a real consequence.
I can agree with that. I'm all right with that too. So we could basically say, we'll take a 5-minute recess and then we'll move on with the next speaker, something like that.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. If it comes to that point that we have to like take a recess, the meeting is disrupted, I agree. I think they need to forfeit their time. We move on. If they have a problem with that, then they can argue it in the court of law.
And I think the key to all this for all of us is that we all agree to this, because when it's happening that night, it might be somebody that's in favor of you and against the other. Well, the next meeting, it might be the other way around. And that's why, whether they're there to support you or not, it should be the same for everyone.
And I could say that has happened. I've lived through that. I agree, 100%.
Couple of questions.
Go ahead, sir.
So, okay, so I'm just playing this out in my mind, and it's like, okay, so you call recess, where do we go? Do we just, because if we stay here, they're gonna continue on. So if we go in there, is that a violation of the Brown Act?
No, it's not a violation, but we cannot speak about anything to do with the city. Minutes are city business. We can all be in a room together talking about the weather or different things, but we cannot talk about city business. And usually what will happen is somebody will go to the restroom or different areas and go different directions. Some people will stay at their chair. So we don't all want to go off on a huddle, because you're right, that would probably not look good
Okay.
to the public, but we can just take the recess and the microphone's off and we go from there.
So, and then, I guess I would just like to clarify that I don't think, I'm thinking of public perception right now, and it's like, I'd hate for any of my constituents or anybody to think that, you know, this is a sign, a way of hushing someone up. This is a way of addressing an issue, take it from me, from a bit of being able to take a break, compose yourself, and address the issue again, because we do lose our emotions sometime, and which just means that we're human, and but you know, the issue or the topic still needs to be addressed. Forfeiting the time, so if they're gonna forfeit their time, how many point of orders do they get?
I think at that point, that's when we're talking about the 3. Usually, again, when this happens is I'll point out, you know, point of order, please be respectful and all the different things. And if it continues, I'll warn them again, hey, look, at this point, we talked about this, so on. There's kids watching on video. There's all these things happening. Please be respectful. You know, we're here to listen to you. Then it happens again. It's just time to pull the plug. If it's very angry outbursts at the very beginning, say there's cussing or something going on, that would be instant. We just shut the mic down and take a break.
And so, I'm just, it's, I guess the point of someone being emotional and someone screaming obscenities is 2 different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think on these, it's not the emotion. The emotion, we all have emotions. It's when somebody is verbally abusing somebody,
Yeah.
or cussing out, or pointing to somebody and saying, you're a crook, or you're this, or you're that, then we say, okay, stop. You know, several years ago, that's what we used to do. And then there were some changes, and that we didn't get the majority to agree to that. And I think that did create more problems. So it's not stopping somebody because they're being emotional. It's when somebody's being verbally abusive, basically. That's when something like this would happen. If that helps, sir.
Yeah, I think that's a fine line gray area. I would like for when the public comes up to address myself or any of my fellow council members to be passionate about what they say. But I think there is a point in time where we have to have order in our chambers. And yeah, so I would say, yeah, at least if we're gonna do this, it has to have 3 point of orders or that before they before our recess.
Again, it depends on the level. So again, if somebody's screaming out and making threats and cussing, I think that's a situation where it stops instantly. And again, very rare does it happen that way. Usually after the first, hey, let's be civilized here, let's have a conversation, that usually stops it. But on a rare occasion, there have been people that have gone out with an outburst of just right away calling somebody a crook or saying, using language that's just inappropriate. And I think when that happens, we can just stop it right there.
I'm just really
I'll give them the warning. I'm sorry. I'll give them the warning, but and it's again, from several of these years, most every single time it's been able to be handled. There have been a couple of situations where it's absolutely
and I totally
from the beginning.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I totally agree, and at the same time, it's like I don't know if like this is violating the rights of freedom of speech and all this stuff because, I mean, being a new council member, it's like from what I thought it was like. My perception was of their 3 minutes was, if I'm on the hot seat, it's 3 minutes of hell, and so it's like. I want to see order, not just from the members, but from myself too. And it's like, you know what? It's like I'm a little conflicted right there. That's why I just don't want to do anything illegal.
Absolutely. Again, this is where we'll get the input again from the city attorney. This has been looked at in the past. There are issues sometimes with freedom of speech, and we want to give everybody that right, but there is a line too when there's threats or language that's just inappropriate.
And typically, if it's to the point where we need to call a recess and everyone needs to break for a certain number of minutes, when we come back, if that person is going to be, if their opportunity to complete their portion of the public comment time that they would originally be allotted is going to be denied, there'd be certain findings that would be stated in the record as to that effect, and then the council could move on from there. To help protect the council and the city in the event that a lawsuit is filed over it.
Okay.
Mayor, President Byrne?
Go ahead.
Thanks. I've heard what Councilmember Perez has said, and I've asked our city attorney as well. Perhaps a compromise position would be that they would forfeit their time subject to when council reconvenes, any council member could make a motion, and if it was seconded and a vote occurred, to let them finish. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm absolutely fine with giving them the boot.
Well, again, I think what happens here is if you have a person that is just intent on making a scene, they're going to continue. More often than not, a break, we can come back and that person would be there much more calm and we can continue and let them finish. But if their intent is just to scream and yell and make accusations, I think at that point we move on.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I like how Councilmember Perez stated it, 3 minutes of hell. Like, it shouldn't feel like that because we're volunteering our time to benefit our community, to help our community. But sometimes it has felt like that when people personally attack you, like they'll bring up things in your past that have no relevance or shouldn't be brought up at the podium, that type of thing. Or they're making personal accusations towards you and stuff. So I think we need to just keep it professional and to the topic at hand, something that the council is, policies that we can make or decisions we can make, but it shouldn't be feeling like they're personally attacking you or they're making a political statement. It shouldn't really feel like that. And if they want to, they can do that. They can talk to you at other times, but not during a council meeting. It's very disruptive, and it's very uncomfortable, and it does feel like that. And it shouldn't really, I don't think.
Okay, any other comments? All right, we'll get the clarification from the city attorney.
Thank you.
Okay.
Under sanctions, council members, the requested change was council members who intentionally and repeatedly do not follow proper conduct may be reprimanded or formally censured by the council, lose seniority or committee assignments, both within the city of Hollister and with the intergovernmental agencies or other privileges afforded by the council. Serious infractions of the code of ethics or code of conduct could lead to other sanctions. And I think we, Councilmember Resendez just wanted to have it be period.
What was this one under, the title?
Page 7. Unless I read this one wrong too, Roland, and I could have.
I think the language was a little ambiguous. It goes on to say, as deemed appropriate by the council. Like, what does that mean legally, Mr. Epperson? It's just, what are they gonna do? You know what I mean? I think that legally all we really can do as a council is censure somebody. But it just seemed a little ambiguous to put as deemed appropriate by the council.
That's correct, Councilmember Resendez. Essentially what the council's option there is to censure someone. And so as deemed appropriate by the council just means assuming a majority of the council votes for that particular action. It can stay in or it can go out regardless. Although, given that it also talks about other sanctions there, it could refer to everything in the preceding paragraphs. Ethics training, removal
Sanctions.
from boards, committees, that sort of thing. But again, it'd be subject to a majority vote of the council.
The same one we were on.
Any other comments on that one?
I didn't even hear that.
I think the situation is basically to us, council members, if we lose control, what are we willing to do as council members to make sure we gain back control instead of a situation that escalates? What remedies do we have and that we agree on that we're going to follow through and not just allow it to continue because we were in favor of one thing or maybe we're against something. It's that professionalism in public especially, it's critically important because once we lose that, we've lost our citizens and we start to see an increase of people coming in and attacking also. So I think it's something that we have to hold ourselves to a standard. And I don't know if we're all willing to follow some sort of sanctioning procedures if we don't, but it's something that I think we have to agree on and not just make exceptions for it. So any input would be great at this point.
Are we okay with just leaving it as a period, or?
As it is? Do we leave it as it is then? I guess I don't hear any comments. I'm sorry, Mr. Perez, did I see your hand up?
No, actually, I'm just kind of reading the, just running through it real quick. No, it's pretty good, because it's just that, I mean, speaking from experience, it's like, I will not be a repeat offender, but, at the same time, it's, it just, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Okay. We'll leave it as is then.
So without, remove that change that I made, or with period, just as it is? As struck?
Period. As up to where you say sanctions, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, and then period.
Councilmember Burns, are you okay with that?
I am. If I understood things correctly, I just heard Mr. Epperson say that it could either be left in or could be removed. And so I certainly support the Vice Mayor's recommendation.
Thank you,
That's correct. It essentially has the same results either way.
thank you. D, implementation. The Code of Ethics and Conduct is intended to be self-enforcing and is an expression of the standards of conduct for the members expected by the city. Again, I probably shouldn't have struck it out, but Councilmember Resendez questioned how, again, do we enforce that? Is it by this?
I think looking at it now, if I can, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, sir.
I think the previous one that we said covers that, right, Mr. Epperson? So we can just take this out? What do you think?
Whether or not the council wants to take it out is another thing, but I definitely agree that it's covered by the previous one.
Yeah, so given that point, I would say let's just take it out. I've got notes here, and I feel like I've put too much now, but yeah, I thought it was a little too ambiguous, and I think it's just redundant, so.
Mr. Burns?
I'm fine, Mayor, with striking that paragraph. I would like to see and I don't know how to, if we remove that first paragraph, I think the second paragraph needs to be rewritten because I do think it's important symbolically and then also practically that each council member, and I'd also add, I think that this is appropriate for any of our other appointed officials, whether it be on committees or commissions, to subscribe to this code of conduct and ethics. And so I would like to see the physical signature page because it's pretty hard to say, I didn't know when there's a document that says, well, I read it and I agree with it.
100% agree with you on that.
If I can, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
I would just suggest then, Mr. Councilmember Burns, that we take out for this reason, comma, we could just put this document shall be included and all, just start there maybe, and that makes a little bit more sense. It reads easy if we were to take out that previous paragraph.
Perfect, sir. Works perfectly well for me.
Okay, is that okay with everyone else?
Agreed.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
We are done with that document.
Very important document. So thank you, Mr. Burns.
This one's going to be a little bit harder. We may want to break this up, but.
Which document?
Give me just 1 second, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Give me just 1 minute. I
Oh.
closed it accidentally. Yes, this one. Can you see that?
City rules and procedures, okay. Can the council members there see it?
Yes.
I almost want to agree with Councilmember Burns that we could remove this document because most of these items are in the Hollister Municipal Code, the very first one we went through, and then add any items from this document that are not duplicative. So I went through the document to see what items, and unfortunately I didn't put it here. I wrote it on another sheet of paper of notes for me. So I don't know if I can open two documents at one time. Can I? If I did this, Can you see that?
I see one document. I don't see two at a time.
Do
I
you
think you
see-
have to make it smaller. You can grab it on the side, like minimize that.
Can you see that says chapter 2.04, City Council?
Correct.
Oh, cool. I can do that.
We can't see it on Zoom.
I can't see it on,
You can
yeah,
only-
on sheet
Oh,
chapter 1.
okay. 1.1.1 is actually our Hollister Municipal Code 2.04.010. 1.1.2 is actually our Hollister Municipal Code 2.04.040. 1.1.2.1 Order of Business is actually Hollister Municipal Code 2.04090, and we've already gone through that other code. Agenda
Yeah.
items are 2.04040 in our code, but what we don't have in our code is the changes in agenda. The city manager determines which items are placed on the agenda and the timing for scheduling such items. Any member of the city council, the city attorney, or the city clerk may request to have an item placed on the agenda. And I believe there was a question on what the procedure of that is. How does a council member ask or get an item placed on the agenda?
In the past, it was, they can bring it up at a council meeting during their notices. And if there's a consensus with the council, it would be moved to the next meeting if possible, or they could find another council member, a co-sponsor to put something on the agenda. Brett, is that kind of what you remember, or what were you thinking there?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
What, just, of course, anybody can bring anyone can bring it to the council, an item. But I think what's worked well is when we are working with the staff, and I have to say, I've been really pleased with our staff the past year, how well they've been working together with all of us. And I think having those conversations at our meetings about items seems to flow much better, because then we're all on board and we're expecting it to come through at a future meeting, rather than just something that pops up and none of us are familiar with it.
So I could add this in there or leave it. I don't know how you guys want to, if you, what you would like to do.
On changes to the agenda, you're saying?
Yeah, on the changes to the agenda, because this is already in the code.
Except with the consent of the majority, no matters other than those agenda shall be acted upon. That's correct. It's fine.
Okay.
This is during a meeting.
Are we in agreement on that so far?
Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
I've got a quick question, if we can.
Go ahead, sir.
Christine, did you say we can get rid of this, that you thought we could probably just get rid of this document?
Yeah, it was a suggestion that most of these items are already in our Hollister Municipal Code. And it's not that we can't change or add things to our Hollister Municipal Code, but I'm wondering if we might be getting into the weeds here.
Yeah,
I would say we are.
I'm looking, Christine, just if I can, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at all my notes and some of it doesn't even align with what we have. Like, all my notes suggest like we could just scratch this document. I don't want to get into all of it, but this is, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to review it. some of it doesn't even align with what we actually do. Like
is
we have an
correct.
elected mayor versus an appointed mayor. There's things that don't even make sense in
Oh,
it.
I'm
So
sorry,
I'm
I'm
wondering
going too fast.
why this document's in there. And I don't want to go through all my notes and waste your guys' time on it like we have been. I'm sorry, but I'm wondering if we could just scratch this whole document if it's already, I don't want to get into the weeds like you said.
Are we in agreement?
Yep.
Yes?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
There you go.
You.
Look at that.
But we're not completely done yet. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
There's one more. Maybe another one you'll want to scratch?
Good chance of it.
It is this one, which I bet you is going to be, oh, hold on.
Bigger protocols.
Which I think we've kind of just adopted, Code of Ethics and Conduct. So mayor proclamation, certificates, city council majority sets policy. We could probably, I'm sorry, Tim, we're gonna scratch that. He decided not to make those changes. We were gonna ask for 10 days in advance, but for any proclamations or certificates, once we get those going again. But I think you guys give us as much time as you can. I don't think it needs to be written anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think we should use.
Request for information. I think council members already communicate with staff. So I'm thinking maybe this document doesn't.
If I can, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm looking at my notes too. It's pretty repetitive. The only real thing I had a question on was like the dollar amount should be included in 3.4 and it wasn't, but if we're gonna scratch it, it doesn't matter. Maybe we can include it somewhere else.
Sorry, I'm going too fast. Because if I stop at least at, he's just questioning what, This is hilarious. It says that copies of all city council members' correspondence bearing city letterhead shall be placed by the city clerk on a clipboard placed in
Yeah.
the city clerk's office. That's cute. Strategic plan process every 2 years. I think we usually do a retreat for that type of thing. The allocated dollar amount is equal to that listed in section 3.4 below. He's requesting that. Shall communicate the desire to attend any training at a council meeting prior to attending the training.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Where did this document come from? Because it seems like we've got like 5 or 6 documents that are saying the same thing. Where did this one, does anybody know where it originated from? Why do we need it?
I don't know.
But do we have these things listed in somewhere else, Christine?
Not all of them. Like this guidelines for authorization, I don't know if that's written anywhere in our travel policy or anywhere else.
It sounds like it aligns with like an HR type of, like a typical HR rule, right, Brett?
Correct. And then your question about like the dollar amount, that can be set during our budget session too.
And then, on number 8, Tim's like just ruining my night. Good, I got him to smile. Okay. I could tell.
I mean, I'm perfectly okay with scratching that. I feel like I'm the only one that commented on that, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. If you guys want to scratch it, I'm perfectly okay with scratching the whole
You and Tim
document.
actually were the only 2 who commented. So if you're okay with it, I'm okay with deleting this document, and you've made my life way easier.
I say so because it talks about using a city vehicle. I'm not driving any of the city cars.
I agree. I wouldn't either. This is outdated.
And you don't
Okay.
want to either.
No,
Yeah.
they're old.
Awesome, we will delete this one.
Yay.
Yay!
Sure.
That means we're done.
Hot diggity dog.
If, I'm starving too, and I'm late for an AMBAG meeting, but
Oh.
I just want to comment because, as we all know, I brought up about the live feed during meetings, and there's nothing in record because Rosenberg's is 2011. That's a little bit before COVID.
I've actually even searched, there's a new proposed assembly bill coming down the pike. It's Assembly Bill 339, and I searched through that. If it gets passed, even it doesn't state anything. It mentions teleconferencing because that's something that's come about since COVID, but all it states is that a council member who teleconferences must be on either audio or video. It doesn't state.
And either way, it says, I think it said or, but either way, if anything does pop up, I'd like for us to follow those protocols. If it's just audio, that's fine, then let's follow that. But I do have, I talked to a lot of people, but you know, it is a concern for the citizens that they'd like to see us, and so, you know,
I'm not sure if I'm speaking for everybody, but I think everyone's looking forward to all being in the council chambers again
yes,
someday.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, hopefully that vaccine is gonna come around for all of us in the next month or so, and that would be just great to be back in the chambers, having these meetings.
Okay.
So, I mean, let's keep
Yeah,
hoping we'll get more allotments here in our community and we can get that shot sooner than later.
And speaking of shot, is this a time for me to congratulate how those vaccinations drives are going? They're really awesome. It's last week there was 700 people that got shots, and it was very orderly. It was very quick to get 700 shots done. There's always discrepancies about leftover stuff, but as far as the process, I think they're doing a great job out there, and I just wanted to let them know that. That's it.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the council? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Before we adjourn, can I just state that I would like to try and bring this back as one document at the very latest on April 19th. If I can get it on the 5th, I will, but I'm going to shoot for the 19th.
Great.
Mayor Velazquez, Tim Burns.
Go ahead, Mr. Burns.
Maybe a formality here, but is there an opportunity for any public comment on our?
Oh, you're right. Thank you so much. Is there any public comment tonight?
We have no public comments tonight.
Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Burns. All right, there's no public comment. Did I hear was there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll have a roll call.
Mayor Velazquez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Resendez,
Aye.
Councilmember Spencer,
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you
Thank you,
on
everybody.
Monday. Take care.